Here's a sample of what you'll hear on this episode of Natural Health Matters.
And also, the insurance companies, there's actually a neat guideline in Medicare's insurance guidelines that says care that's designed to increase the quality of life, enhance and prolong life is deemed not medically necessary.
Wow.
And most of my patients that I talk to, I'm like, are you interested in quality of life and longevity? They're like, well, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the flip of that is functional medicine. And functional medicine, I tell my patients that I get to be the proverbial 2-year-old. I get to ask the question, why?
Welcome to the Natural Health Matters podcast, where it's all about maximizing your health potential so that you can pursue the abundant life more effectively. I'm your host, David Sandstrom, naturopathic doctor and biblical health coach, and this is episode number 51. This episode is brought to you by Sauna Space, makers of high-quality home saunas. Let's face it, you know you want one. Even people casually interested in health and wellness have heard of the health benefits to sauna therapy. The research is in, the word is out, regular sauna bathing is extraordinarily beneficial to your health. Go to my website, davidsandstrom.com/resources, and click on the Sauna Space logo and start enjoying all the health benefits to owning your own third-party tested, zero EMF infrared home sauna today. Today we have on the show Dr. Greg Monjeon. He is the father to 5 active kids, husband to the love of his life, innovator and speaker. He's the lead functional medicine doctor for Eat the Frog Fitness. His philosophy is the doctor of the future is you. He actively pursues empowering his clients through mentoring education, self-care, and optimizing mindset. Dr. Greg, welcome to the show.
David, what a pleasure. We've had just a sweet chat here even before we got going, and I'm excited to just touch a life. I always say my goal is if one person can take one nugget from the conversation that can change their trajectory, then our job is done, right?
I love it. That's great. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to meet you. Dr. Greg and I just met a couple days ago online, and I think he's going to be a really good guest. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. I'm always happy to have a guy like you on the show who's trained in the traditional medical fashion and then kind of broke away from that strict style of doing things and starts to think outside the box. So I find myself explaining to people often what the difference is between allopathic medicine and naturopathy. But there's different approaches to healthcare. There's CAM practitioners, which are complementary and alternative medicine, and there's functional medicine. Now, you, of course, are a functional medicine practitioner. So, Dr. Monjeon, would you explain for the natural nation what exactly is functional medicine?
That's a great question. I think it's interesting that we're called alternative when traditional medicine is called mainstream. And the real concept is around sick care versus health care. Right now, according to statistics, the United States, we rank number 1 in emergency medicine. So if unfortunately I get in a car accident on the way home today and I break a leg, the emergency room is the best place in the world for me to be. Now, according to the World Health Organization, when it comes to overall health and wellness, our country we're missing something. We spend more per person per capita than 30 some other countries. And so, for example, if I have a chronic infection or something like Lyme disease or an autoimmune disease, our country is trying to take the practices of traditional allopathic care, sickness care, and apply it to making somebody well. The concept is understand that allopathic care, they use the concept of, I have 2 tools, and my tools are drugs and surgery. So does your symptom, does your laboratory work call for one of those things? And if one of those things doesn't work, then they kind of throw their arms up in the air. And also the insurance companies, there's actually a neat guideline in Medicare's insurance guidelines that says care that's designed to increase the quality of life, enhance and prolong life is deemed not medically necessary.
Wow.
And most of my patients that I talk to, I'm like, are you interested in quality of life and longevity? They're like, well, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the flip of that is functional medicine. And functional medicine, I tell my patients that I get to be the proverbial 2-year-old. I get to ask the question, why? So instead of saying that a symptom's a bad thing, I get to think, well, it's actually your body trying to talk to you. And instead of saying, well, here's a this for that. And respectfully, there's even a lot of doctors in the functional health world that they say, oh, don't take Prilosec for your heartburn. I have a natural thing for heartburn. That's no different. It still doesn't get to the root cause of what's going on. Now, functional medicine is also a lot more work. It's in allopathic medicine, the doctors are told to not see the people very often because that's insurance companies or for-profit companies. Where in functional medicine, to do good work, there's a relationship, and it's an ongoing relationship, and there's connection. And it's not just about symptoms, much like your podcast talk about. We talk about traumas, we talk about spiritual health, we talk about relationships. And when you truly get into that component, I tell all of my patients, this is really a spiritual journey as much as it is a health journey. So what we're finding, so I've done this for almost 20 years now. And 20 years ago, the allopathic world thought that we were crazy. And now they're starting to go, this is interesting. Yet I have even family members that are allopathically trained. They're so ingrained into the system of insurance-based care, pharmacological intervention. Even the thought of spending more than 8 to 10 minutes with a patient is completely outside of their realm.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for the most part, an allopathic practitioner, again, great for emergencies and acute conditions, right? Super. That's where they shine. But with chronic conditions, not as useful. I had a guest on the show not too long ago, Lindsay Elmore, and she said what an allopathic practitioner wants to do is they want to name it, blame it, and tame it. So they take your collection of symptoms and they assign a Latin name to it. They call it a disease. And then they blame your symptoms on that disease. And then they tame it with drugs and surgery. Perfectly appropriate at times. But again, if you're dealing with a chronic condition, something like Lyme disease, which I actually had, we could talk about that if you want.
I saw that, yeah.
The allopathic model kind of falls on its face when it comes to those types of things. Therefore, we have to look at the whole person. Human beings are a spirit. We have a mind and we live in a body. And it's my contention that we maximize our health potential when we align our lives more fully with God's design for spirit, mind, and body. So I think you and I are on the same page.
No doubt.
Yeah, excellent. So was there an event in your life where you started to question your traditional training and you started to explore other options when it came to healthcare? Was there a single event, or was it kind of a slow over time process for you?
I am traditionally trained not as an allopathic doctor, but as a chiropractor. There was unquestionably a pivot. In 1998, I had just started my graduate school training, and I got a phone call from my dad that night. And I believe that we all have what I call hot tub experiences, is something that happens to us and it feels good while we're in it, but it doesn't change our life. And then we have pivotal experiences where something happens to us, something said to us, we see something, and it changes us forever. So in September of 1998, my dad called all 4 of us boys one night. He was 50 years old, and he said, I have cancer. And
Wow.
50 years old, fairly advanced urinary bladder cancer. And he said, would you be willing to potentially take some time away from your studies and join our family at the esteemed Mayo Clinic here in Minnesota? And I can put you on the square of carpet at 7608 Newton Avenue South when I got that phone call from my dad. It changed everything. I went to school to help people, to have a nice car and nice stuff, yet I really didn't realize that it was about them and not about me. So our entire family went down to the Mayo Clinic, and my dad was 6'5", 200-pound, tall, skinny guy. And his symptom was a kidney stone. And I believe it was the Lord that placed upon my mother's intuition, like, Ron, you've got to get this checked out. So my dad was laying on the gurney about to go into surgery, and all 4 of my brothers were standing there. And I believe that the Lord intended on this to be a pivotal time in my life. My dad handed me his wedding ring.
Oh,
and he said to me, Greg, if I don't come out, I want you to have this. And I still get 23 years ago, and I still get choked up about it, because that's not how we lived our life. We didn't plan for that. My parents didn't say, I hope 28 years into our marriage, we can go through one of the most stressful things in the world. And that's not what we do, yet there's a plan. And I believe that in life, we've all had things that have happened in our life. And the pivot is if we can shift it from this is happening to me to this is happening for me. So that put me on a journey of, why am I doing this? Why am I going to school to be a doctor? And it took me on this path of, this is not about me. And then that dug me into a path of really understanding cancer and autoimmune disease and tough conditions. Now, not to leave your listeners hanging, I'm grateful for Western medicine. So they took my dad at the time. My dad had urinary bladder cancer. So they took out his urinary bladder. They took out his prostate. They took a 1-foot chunk of his small intestine and made a new bladder. Now, 23 years later, my dad's alive.
Wow.
And praise God for that. Yet here's the reality is, John says, I come to give you life and life to the fullest. And so many of our listeners are experiencing life, but what is life to the fullest, right? In Genesis, it says, we're made in his image and his likeness, which means there's a pretty good design here. So my dad's alive, yet respectfully, and we're not ungrateful for it, but my dad has to wear a diaper every night because he has no bladder control. So that was a huge pivot for me along the way. So that helped me understand, what is my purpose? So my why is something that I call Operation Great Grandpa. Even to be a guest on your show today, I asked the question, does this take me closer to or further away from my purpose as a healer? And what I realized is there's going to be someone that's listening to this and it has the potential to change their life. It has the potential for them to go, oh my gosh, I've never seen it that way. So I'm grateful for it. And that was a huge pivot for me professionally. And then about 3 or 4 years into my practice, I had a private practice in a small town. One of my patients, I treated a ton of kids on the autistic spectrum. I was what's called a Defeat Autism Now, a DAN doctor. And this patient said to me, Dr. Greg, who do you think you are knowing what you know and not sharing it with everybody? So that parlayed into us starting to, so now we're blessed to treat people literally around the world, and we have a local practice, a virtual practice. And my ultimate goal, I believe that the Lord has called me to reveal the potential of others.
Excellent.
So there's a potential that we have. There's no doubt. It's scripturally written. I mean, I'm a son of God, which makes me heir to the throne. Holy smokes. When we get that, then we might as well live like that. And a lot of people have, mothers, fathers, teachers, and preachers, these scripts in their head that are not allowing them to have that. So I'm here to let people, our tagline in our clinic is, we create epic family reunions.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, I'm reminded of the verse. I don't know where it is at the moment, but it says, once we know the good that we ought to do and fail to do it, for us, it's sin. Right. So we all want to get into that mission, that life's calling, and it's always going to involve other people. It's going to be about us pouring into other people, right? My life calling is not to go bungee jump as many bridges as I can. That's not a calling. That might be some fun recreation, but your calling is going to have something to do with other people. And I agree with everything you just said about making an impact in this world for the kingdom of God in other people's lives. That's what it's really all about. It's not about how much money you make, how many toys you have. He who dies with the most toys wins. These multi-million-dollar homes, that's living. Actually, no, it's not. So when you have a patient come to your clinic, what do they typically present with? What are their complaints?
That's such a good question. My physical practice is about 80 miles from the Mayo Clinic. So we've coined this term, the Mayo Clinic dropout. This is the person that has symptoms that don't make sense. They've been tested up one side, down the other. And I have a huge appreciation for laboratory work. Actually, my niche in the world of functional medicine, one of my statements is don't guess, test. Mm-hmm. So, and again, the big difference is how allopathic doctors look at lab tests and how functional medicine doctors look at lab tests. A common theme of my patients is I've had all these labs ran. My doctor says my labs are normal. However, I'm not normal. I don't feel well, Dr. Greg. And I would say about 20% of our clients have been prescribed antidepressants because the doctors are like, hey, maybe this is just in your head. The thing that I love, though, is they didn't just take it at its word. They're like, no, that's not me. That's not my birthright, right? I'm not heir to that throne.
Yeah.
So they walk in with symptoms that don't always make sense. And again, it's not, name it, blame it. And I love that term. Yeah, tame it. It's to say, awesome. Your body is so intelligent. And even in the conversation of autoimmunity, which is where I focus most of my work now, autoimmunity, chronic infection, is because these symptoms don't make sense to people. Fatigue, for example, or gut issues, or even depression and anxiety. Yet these, or the myriad is all over the place. The thing that I would say that my clients would tell people is I love how we can dig in and understand the numbers and then figure out the true why. And that's one thing that I completely love. I'm a geek for lab work. I love the numbers. I actually teach doctors around the world how to read lab work from a functional medicine standpoint. And yesterday I had 2 clients here, and I just briefly looked at their labs and I said, based upon this number, it means this. And I just saw this like, wow, thank you. I'm so frustrated. I know how I feel, but the doctors say there's nothing wrong with me. So to understand the immune system and to understand our white blood cells and understand the kidneys and the liver, to read those things and to give people hope, that is amazing. So yeah, the people that we see are the people that have confused a lot of doctors. I had a lady come in yesterday with hundreds of pages of notes.
Wow.
And essentially she went to this like super high-end specialist endocrinologist, and he's like, I don't know. I don't know.
Sorry. Well, at least he had the integrity to admit that, rather than put her on a standard protocol or prescribe an antidepressant and send her on her way.
Right.
So hats off to him. Human beings are complex, right? We have a lot going on. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 75 trillion cells. And that's a big number. And I'm a geek, so I figured this out with a calculator. If you were to count seconds, guess how long it would take to count 75 trillion seconds?
It's like over 100 years, probably.
3.2 million years.
Oh, my word.
Yeah. All right.
Right.
So and we're complex.
It's divinely designed. Every single one is there for a purpose. And it's not like my thing, like especially with like autoimmunity, that I like the medical approach to autoimmunity. By the way, there's over 100 different autoimmune diseases. Is they're like, I'm sorry, your immune system has gone awry. We need to turn it down. Yeah. Your system is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. Like, really? Are you saying that 75 trillion cells and 3 billion bits of information every second, and my body is gone cuckoo? Like, it's impossible. Dude, right. I have way too many college credits and way too much faith in how we're put together to go, oh yeah, that makes sense. And the approach for some of these right now is chemotherapy medication.
I know. Oh, isn't that crazy?
Breaks my heart.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, statistically, and there is a time and place for medication. I'm not trying to say that I'm against it. Yeah. Though what I can tell you, DMARDs, for example, for people with rheumatoid arthritis, the average DMARD is somewhere between $7,000 and $17,000 a month with a 30 to 40% success rate.
Wow.
Now, if there wasn't health insurance, who in their right mind would drop that kind of cash for that little of a success rate? So I'm not here to battle big pharma, though. It's big money. And for those people that it works for, awesome. Mm-hmm. And for those, and maybe one of your listeners is this person right now, that's like, it's never felt right for me. And I knew there was something else. That's the conversation. That's like the Holy Spirit and you saying, we're not done. Like, I'm not done with you yet. There is more. And the reason that they're even listening to this is because this interests them. So I love that conversation. I know that when a person's in front of us or even listening to this, that they have an ear that's bent towards it. Mm-hmm. And it's our job to bless them with the right information.
Yeah. So I know that you're big on this autoimmunity thing. Would you explain to the natural nation what autoimmunity is and what you believe the cause? I mean, it's difficult to say exactly what the cause is. Would you talk to that for a bit? What if I told you there was a pill that if you take it regularly, you could enhance your immune function, detox your body from heavy metals and environmental toxins, enhance your mood, relax your muscles, reduce pain, bring on better sleep, and has virtually no side effects? If this pill existed, would you want to get your hands on it? Well, this treatment does exist, but it's not a pill. It's called sauna therapy. God's design is always best. Being outdoors and getting sunlight on your skin on a regular basis is remarkably health enhancing. But most of us don't live in tropical climates and we can't always get outdoors. So the next best thing is having an infrared sauna at your house. Far infrared saunas have been used successfully for years. However, please understand this. Far infrared saunas have a dirty little secret. Most of them emit high amounts of EMF, or electromagnetic frequencies. These EMFs stress our bodies and reduce the effectiveness of sauna bathing. Sauna Space solves that problem by using third-party tested, zero EMF, near-infrared bulbs that more closely mimic natural sunlight. I love my Sauna Space sauna, and I use it several times a week. If you're considering a home sauna, I highly encourage you to go to my website, davidsandstrom.com/resources, and click on the Sauna Space logo and start enjoying all the extraordinary health benefits of owning your own near-infrared, zero EMF home sauna today. Now let's get back to the show. Would you explain to the natural nation what autoimmunity is and what you believe the cause? I mean, it's difficult to say exactly what the cause is. Would you talk to that for a bit?
I appreciate that opportunity. So the medical definition of autoimmunity is that your immune system has identified a healthy tissue in your body. So if it's your thyroid, they call it Graves or Hashimoto's. If it's your brain, they call it MS. If it's your liver, they call it type 1 diabetes. If it's your joints, they call it rheumatoid, et cetera, et cetera. There's over 100 different autoimmune diseases. So Western medicine says your immune system has identified a healthy piece of tissue, a normal piece of tissue in your body, as a foreign piece of tissue, and it's now making antibodies against that tissue. Therefore, your immune system has gone awry, and it's gone rogue, and we need to take over for it. Okay. So I'm probably 100,000 sets of labs into my career. I love labs. I enjoy labs. And several years ago, as I was mulling over labs of tough patients, I take zero credit for this. I firmly believe that the Lord said, here's one for you, Greg, I said, I don't believe that that's the design of our body. I don't believe there's this like, oops, sorry, this isn't going to work. So I started to dig into research. And here's what I have 5 kids, and I don't like when my kids use definitives, always and never, though I can tell you in known autoimmune cases, I have over a 99.5% definitive additional finding. So let's talk just very simply about the immune system function. And there's no PhDs in biochemistry today. So your white blood cells are part of your immune system function, part of a very array part of our immune system. So let's say that we get an infection, whether that infection is a bacteria or a virus or a mold or a fungus or a parasite. Our immune system responds to that. So what happens is our red blood cells will actually spike up high. Think of it being like there's an enemy, and we deploy our troops. So we deploy our white blood cells. And then if our white blood cells have the right tools and our immune system is robust enough, it will kill the enemy and get rid of it. And then our white blood cells come back to normal. And
Let me interrupt you real quick. Just to avoid confusion, I think you started out saying red blood cells rise, but with an infection, it's white blood cells is what you meant.
Totally white. Yep. Yeah. I thank you for correcting me, because we're like, what?
Yeah.
So your white blood cells rise, they kill the infection. And then when it's gone, it comes back to normal. Now enter what I'm seeing in my clinic. So we see in walks an infection. White blood cells rise. So an active infection. So white blood cells in functional medicine, if you look at your labs, should be between 5 and 8. So if it's above 8, that tells us there's an active infection happening in your body. Your body's fighting something right now. Now, let's go back to the war analogy. So there's an enemy, and we've deployed our troops. But this enemy is good. It's got different genetic properties. There's a lot of it. We've beat down some of our troops. So if we're not able to defeat the enemy, we are not able to withstand that level of white blood cells or our troops. They start to die off. So if we see labs, white blood cells less than 5 on a CBC, a complete blood count, that is indicative of a chronic infection. It tells us that your body's immune system there's something on board. There's still this enemy, but we don't have the troops anymore to fight it. And then if you have the right CBC done, there's something called the differentials, where it breaks down the white blood cell. It's things called like lymphocytes and neutrophils. I'm not going to go into that, but that's a breakdown of the types of white blood cells. Here's what was downloaded to me: fratricide. And it can happen. So what I believe, and we have amazing success with it in the autoimmune and chronic infection world, is autoimmunity is nothing else than an overwhelmed immune system function that is fighting such a battle, and it's so overwhelmed that the good guys, for whatever reason, have been identified as a bad guy, and your immune system doesn't need to be turned off. It needs to be, we need to bring additional troops in and help. Mm-hmm. So what we do is we do testing to see chronic infection, co-infection, comorbidities, and we understand what we're up against. When you understand what you're up against, it gives people this like, oh, thank goodness. Because what I can tell you, if you're a listener, you're like, oh my gosh, I think this is me. Spoiler alert, there is no magic pill. There is no easy button. This is a journey. This is an ultra marathon. Yet it gives them peace of mind to at least know what they're up against.
Yeah.
So then over time, we come alongside, and with those people, we see leaky gut, we see liver stress, we see kidney stress, we see a system that just says, I need help.
Yeah.
So we identify that, and then we walk through a journey, and we get some really cool results.
So let me make sure I'm understanding you correctly. So if someone comes in presenting with all the signs and symptoms of a hidden underlying infection, let's say a parasitic infection, right, and you would expect to see their white blood cell count elevated, but instead you see it low.
Yeah.
So that is the indicator that their immune system is overwhelmed.
That tells me that they've been battling this for a while.
It's chronic.
And their poor immune system is tapped out.
Yeah.
And understand now that they're now immunocompromised. Now they're a sitting duck for other things. And a lot of these people through the traditional route have been given antibiotics. Mm-hmm. Antibiotics only touch bacteria, and it also goes after beneficial bacteria. So think about this. I'm all for an antibiotic to get rid of bad bacteria, but it's not selective. So now the good bacteria are out. So let's say there's a virus, there's a mold, there's a parasite, and our good bacteria are gone. Now they're like, holy smokes, they can go bananas because there's nothing to pull them down. So many of our patients that have taken the allopathic route are like, I was not great, or I had Lyme and I was put on 3 months of doxycycline. And my goodness, it really felt like that was kind of like a whole nother start to another level of my health journey. So yeah.
So I just wanted to say this as well. The approach you're talking about is not trying to outsmart our bodies with pharmaceuticals and trick them into doing certain things, because what pharmaceuticals do is they turn off or inhibit a natural body function. Look at the classifications: antihistamines, antibiotics, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, beta blockers. That's what they do. They shut things off. So rather than shutting things off and preventing our bodies from functioning the way they want to function, we come alongside and support our natural function, and therefore strengthen our system to overcome this challenge on their own.
Unquestionably.
Yeah, really good.
We're 25,000 patients and almost 20 years into it, and we expect miracles. Excellent. And because I truly believe that the Lord's design is that. And it also, it takes a person that believes that they can get well. It takes a person that's willing to do the hard work. It's a person that is willing to dig into their faith, dig into quiet time, evaluate relationships, look at things that could be bombarding. I had a new patient yesterday. She was diagnosed with hypersomnia, which is a very interesting diagnosis. It was diagnosed through some cortisol labs. And it started in her 20s. And I said, time out. Before we get into all the medical jargon, can I ask you what happened in your life then? And all of a sudden, this woman, she said, well, I was dating a young man and I broke up with him. And the next day he committed suicide.
Oh.
And what she needed to hear at that time was I said to her, your body responded absolutely appropriately to the situation.
Yeah.
But she had a symptom and no one ever got to the why.
Yeah.
So a lot of our work is to understand the why. So I'll ask many people, they'll say, this started here. And I'll go, cool. What happened then? What were some significant things that happened in your life around that time? And most of them say, I've never been asked that before. I have to think about that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because that's the spiritual component.
People just simply don't make the connection. They think the reductionist approach that MDs apply is we are just a collection of atoms and molecules, cells and tissue. That's all a human being is. But we know, as followers of Jesus Christ, that we're far more than that. Mm-hmm. And all three parts to a person, spirit, mind, and body, are interconnected. They can't be separated and interdependent. What affects one aspect of our being will inevitably alter the others for good or bad. So what you so eloquently described just then with that patient of yours is the mind-body connection. She had a traumatic emotional experience. And then all of a sudden, I'm sure a flood of destructive thoughts came in. This is your fault. Right. You're a bad person, and bad people don't deserve good things. Oh man, there's so much of a spiritual battle going on at that point. It's amazing. So yeah, it takes somebody willing to take the road less traveled, dig beneath the surface of the symptom, and say why. And let's address that. And, I could talk some more on this. You said someone needs to believe that they can be well. That's a huge thing,
Right.
And they have to want to be well too. In John chapter 5, when Jesus comes in contact with the paralytic by the Bethesda pool, Jesus says to the man, do you want to be well? Right. A strange question, right? But Jesus asked the man that because he wanted to awaken something inside of him. He wanted him to understand how truly needy he was. And Jesus knew he was about to heal him, right? But he wanted to awaken something in that person. And I think the same is true with a person who wants to conquer a major or chronic health challenge.
David, the word that just came to me in all of that is identity, right? So many people with chronic infection, chronic diseases say, my name is Susan and I have Lyme disease. And I say, Susan, that's not who you are. And as believers, to understand whose we are and to separate it from a diagnosis, for example, an identity that is not who you're designed to be. That pivot is so clutch in this world of, because like, for example, in that paralytic in John chapter 4, Jesus had all of the ability. You might have the right clinician, but if you're not the right person that has the ability to say, I am, because there's actually something called Parkinson's law. And it's essentially the conversation of being love of captor. This was actually studied during World War II in Vietnam, that people actually got to like their captors. So there's this shift where you're like, oh, maybe this is just as good as it gets. And maybe this is who I am. So I tell my patients, there's the science of functional medicine, which is me reading the lab and creating a protocol and telling you what to do and not to do. And that's a small fraction of the work that we do. And then there's the art of functional medicine, which says, let's walk this sticky journey sometimes. And I tell people there are going to be curveballs, and there's going to be times where you're going to come up against a something, and it's keeping you from who you're supposed to be. So naturally, there's going to be resistance in that. And for those that are believers that are listening to this, I mean, that spiritual sabotage is real, because you've conditioned the people around you. If you have a chronic condition that you've had for a long time, you've conditioned your loved ones how to talk to you, how to be around you, where you can go, where you can't go, what you can eat. Like, you've conditioned them. So if you truly believe that there's this next calling on your life, there could be the possibility of like, will they think differently of me? Will they still love me if I don't have these demands? And that's the part of the conversation that I love. And that goes into shifting identity.
Absolutely.
Let me explain to you whose you are.
Yeah.
You are a daughter of Christ, and you are heir to the throne. And I need you to claim that, because in many cases with chronic disease, people, they believe the lies.
Yep.
So yeah, that's such, I love John is so rich. My men's group right now is going through John chapter 4. And in even the conversation of the woman at the well, right? Jesus knew everything. And yet there was this need for her to receive. And I believe that's that vulnerability that we need to have to allow someone to come alongside of us. I believe that one of the huge parts of our goals with our patients is accountability. It's to be vulnerable to someone that is here to truly help you. And a lot of these people have had bad experiences with clinicians, and they feel like they're not listened to, and they feel like they've been just given a bunch of drugs. And many times they're thousands and tens of thousands, in some cases, deep into their journey.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned John 10:10 a while ago. That's my life verse. And, I'm just going to quote it. The enemy has come to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that they might have life and have it abundantly. There's so much in that verse. I could do a couple of episodes on it, but I believe that part of the abundant life is health and wellness, because God says he has a purpose for us, Ephesians 2:10. So we are his workmanship, created for good works that God planned beforehand. So if he had works in mind when he created David, then he wants me to be able to fulfill those works. He wouldn't put stumbling blocks in my way. He wants me to have the health and the energy and the drive and the stamina to fulfill those good works. And sometimes they can be quite challenging, but he's on our side. He wants to empower us. So I firmly believe that part of the abundant life is health and wellness. And this prosperity, this word gets a bad rap in a lot of Christian circles, because sometimes it just comes down to money. But when God says he wants to prosper us, Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, not to harm you, but to give you a future and a hope for prosperity. And prosperity, I believe part of that is health and wellness. we can look to our design and say, well, an airplane is designed for flight, right? I can see in its design, it's designed to get in the air. And we are designed for health because health is our default setting. So we know that our designer's desire is health.
Right.
But it can get tripped up in a lot of different ways. And that's what we're talking about here today.
I think it's important, the first part, because a lot of people in John 10:10 say life and life to the fullest, though they forget the first part, that Satan does come to rob and steal and destroy.
Yeah.
So to understand that enemy and that part of the fall that can impact us. So we need to be mindful of who comes alongside of us, who we take counsel from. And also there's that sabotage component. So yeah, I love it. That's so neat that when people get that, then there's completely a next step that can happen.
Well, one of the things that I talk about in my book, The Christian's Guide to Holistic Health, is correcting limiting beliefs. We all have them. And sometimes those beliefs can be blocking factors or roadblocks to our healing. And a lot of times we've been so under the cloud for so long of these lies that it feels normal to us. We've been living under for years, maybe decades, and we need the help of someone close to us, or perhaps even a counselor, a pastor or professional paid counselor to help dig those things out. And, it's so complex, but it's worth exploring. It's worth going there.
Right. Yeah. It's deep work. It is, it's not, there's no easy pill. There's no magic pill, easy button. It takes work, and not just work on your behalf. Many times most of our clients most of my patients are females. And I believe that's because women actually are willing to say like, there's something wrong with me, where most guys are like, I'm fine, I'm good. Guess what? So for the guys that are listening to this, spoiler alert, 1 in 2 men will have cancer in their life. So be there. Now, if you're also a guy listening to this, I want to explain to you that there's two types of husbands that are husbands to the patients of mine. So husband number one is the guy that says, I will do whatever we need to do to get my girl back. I miss her. And I know that she's not living her God-fulfilled life. And I'm willing to be supportive of her. I'm even willing to eat some different food to help her out. I know that where she's at is not where she's designed to be. Now, the flip side of that is the husband. And if you're this guy, I just want this to land. There's the guy that says, oh, here we go again. Another one of these. What's this one going to cost? And you're going to have to take a bunch of supplements in this one. Oh my gosh. Well, whatever, do what you want. Now, I say that and I want that to land a little bit, because what I can tell you is I ask every single one of my patients about their support system. If you're on an island by yourself, it's tough.
It's a lot tougher.
And if you're the husband and you truly love your wife and you're like, oh, I kind of lean towards guy number 2, then I believe that this is a word for you. This is a word for you to check yourself and to see what's driving that. And also what an opportunity to have a good conversation with your spouse, to dig in, to even be a part. I had a great call with one of my new patients yesterday, and her husband was sitting right beside her because she knew that she needed him on board, and that he would be her helper inside, like, okay, we're going to do this dietarily, and we're going to start to do these things that we haven't done in a while. And when we have that, what I can tell you, it's a huge, huge part of success in a case. So support system, we need those. And again, if you're a husband that's listening to this, hopefully, I don't mean to condemn you. Hopefully I can, as a husband myself, hopefully that I can encourage you to know who your wife needs you to be on this journey.
Excellent. That's a good word. Really good. Dr. Greg, do we have time to get into the team's approach that you take with your clients? All right, let's talk about that.
Yeah. So a big part of, again, remember I talked about there's the science of medicine, which is your lab says this, your numbers say this, do this, and then there's the art. So TEAMS is an acronym that I believe another thing that the Lord laid on me many, many years ago. So one of the things that I've been fortunate enough to do is I'm the personal functional medicine doctor for an Olympic gold medal wrestler. And I got to run all of his labs on him. When I traveled with him, I actually cooked all of his meals so he could make weight. An amazing man of God. His name is Jordan Burroughs. He's he's a guy from New Jersey. He's unquestionably the best wrestler to ever live in the United States. So
wow.
When I was around him, I got to be around some of the best coaches in the world, literally in the world. So the TEAMS acronym landed on me. So T stands for thoughts. So when I have my check-ins with our patients, we walk through, they say, all right, let's talk through our steps. So T is thoughts. A friend of mine, Dr. Daniel Amen, talks about ants, automatic negative thoughts. He says we have about 80-some thousand thoughts a day, and roughly 80% of those are negative, and roughly 80% of those are the same thoughts we had yesterday. So we have to come in and talk about, where's your thought process? How is that doing? And shoot me straight. I mean, here's the thing. When people hire us to be their clinician, we don't want, lollipops and rainbows. We want the facts. So we jump into that. E then is eating and supplementation. Nutrition is food. I grew up in a farming community, and I have a huge heart for farmers and ranchers. And I love to teach people about food, how to prepare food. My mom, there's actually no such thing anymore, but my mom was a home ec major. So my mom is 100% German and a home ec major, which means her middle name is Betty Crocker. So I mean, I had a root cellar in my house. If I ate beef growing up, we butchered the cow. If we had chicken, I was at my aunt's place butchering the chicken. So I have this huge appreciation for food and how food can be healing. And I also understand there can be a huge emotional component around food. Most people, food is a drug. It's a socially accepted drug. So we try to recreate a healthy relationship with food. One thing that we don't do in our clinic is we don't do crash diets. We don't do fad diets. We don't do crazy restrictive diets because they're not sustainable.
Yeah. Our
goal is to take a person from where they are and make it sustainable through their life. So we teach them how to shop, what to eat, how to prepare, how to have things on hand. So that's eating. We do use very specific supplementation in our protocols as a supplement. And it's called a supplement for a reason. It supplements a healthy diet. So we use very specific supplementation. And then A is accountability. I will simply ask, David, if you were my clients, I would say, David, let's figure out something that I can hold you accountable to over the next couple of weeks that will move the needle closer to where you need to be from a health and wellness standpoint. So I grew up, I'm an ex-football and basketball player. And I can tell you, in the times in my life where I've accomplished some of the greatest things, I've had a coach beside me. And I didn't always like that coach, by the way. There were 6:30 a.m. Basketball practices, and there were 2-a-day football practices. Yet there was an agreement at the beginning of an endpoint. And what we did is we locked elbows and we walked through it, through the good times, through the bad. And what they did is they revealed in me potential, right? So that's where I got it from. I got it from my high school football and basketball coaches. And I realized that it's not all lollipops and rainbows. So that accountability, knowing that someone's alongside of you that may see something in you that you may not see yet in yourself. And instead of giving you a fish, we're going to teach you how to fish. So that accountability part, I love. I love when people can be vulnerable and also to know that I'm not going to condemn them if they didn't be perfect. There's this, I seem to attract a lot of perfectionist mindsets. These people are like, man, there's no gray, it's black or white. And I go, I'm going to teach you a word that's going to change your life. And they're like, okay, Dr. Greg, what's the word? And I said, it's grace. You need to learn to give yourself grace. And they're like, so, and what I learned from those people is typically something was taken from them against their will at some point in time in their life. So they said, never again will anyone have that control. I'll have everything put together. So there's,
perfectionism can absolutely be a blocking factor to health. It's very stress producing. And that could be for some people the big issue. Producing a chronic cortisol drip, this sympathetic reaction in their nervous system that's preventing their body from functioning and healing and repairing the way it wants to.
Exactly. Yep. So take food, for example. They're like, oh, I have this very stringent thing. And I'll say sometimes like, okay, so what is your body craving for food? And they're like piece of chocolate cake. And I said, go have a half a piece.
Yeah.
I would never do that. Well, why? Because I would never want anyone to say that I did something wrong. Oh, interesting. Where does that come from? So we allow those things. So accountability is probably one of my favorite things because it allows us to get raw. It allows us to get to the root and also to walk and work through that component. A lot of our patients, I would say, are saved or they believe in Jesus Christ, yet they may not be free and have that complete freedom in Christ as bought and paid by the blood of the Lamb. And that's a process. And I love to be able to walk people through that because they think that they have these things that are with them.
Well, salvation can be had in a few moments when we put our faith and trust in Jesus Christ, but wholeness takes a lifetime.
So true. Oh, that's so true. And it's a journey and it's not a destination. We get to enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
So that's good. M stands for movement. We don't have our people sign up for the Twin Cities Marathon, though movement is important, whether that movement is just to simply go for a walk. This lady yesterday, I said, when's the last time you took your dogs for a walk around the block? I don't know. Go for it. It's going to make you feel better.
Yeah.
So, and some people do more advanced moving. I actually have some professional Ironman triathletes as clients of ours.
Yeah.
So it's different. There's a different level, but movement, we are designed to move. And a lot of people, there's a lot of guilt around this. I have a lot of people that are like weight loss resistant, women with thyroid issues, and they work out like crazy. They'll say to me, Dr. Greg, here's my diet, here's my workout program, and here's me. Why can't I lose weight? So there's this guilt about if I just burn more calories and I do all this stuff. So sometimes we have to give them some, I think I've said this before, grace around that conversation. But
I hear a recurring theme here, Dr.
Right. Right. It's so good. And then S is sleep. If you are not sleeping, you are not going to heal. And so for example, there's a book called Spark. And in this book, it said the number one cause of breast cancer in women is the lack of darkness because of what it does to the melatonin circuit. So as little as a single red light from a smoke detector on your ceiling can disrupt your sleep. Every single cell in your body has photoreceptors on it. So and I think I actually saw that one of your sponsors on one of your shows was a blackout shade company.
That's
I'm like,
right.
yes, this is perfect because your bedroom must be completely pitch black. Yep. So we're talking no alarm clocks. We're talking no street lights, no night lights, no bathroom lights. There's always low hanging fruit to get well. And we talk a lot about these things that cost nothing.
Well, as an airline pilot, I sleep in a lot of hotel rooms and they all have smoke detectors and some of them are literally strobe lights. You know, how are you supposed to sleep when you've got this strobe light going on the ceiling? So I bring some black electrical tape with me and I'll tape those things over before I go to sleep because that can really interfere with some effective rest. And, I have to show up rested. If I'm not rested, I have to call in fatigued. We're legally not allowed to fly fatigued for good reason. You don't want your pilot showing up with no sleep. You want him, maybe not 100%, but at least alert enough to perform his skills adequately. So I've learned a few things about making the room dark. I bring a clip when the curtains I clip together so there's no light coming through the crack in the curtains. I take a bath towel and I roll it up and I put it underneath the crack in the door, and I make that room as dark and as quiet as I can. If it's too noisy outside, I have a noisemaker that I listen to. So sleep is important.
In that book, they talked about the two pieces. So like the very low hanging fruit, you just gave some amazing things that cost absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Complete darkness and ambient noise. So I sleep with a sleep mask every single night. Some people that have autoimmune diseases have very sensitive eyes, especially if they have different eye autoimmune diseases. Like for example, my wife cannot handle the pressure of a sleep mask on her eye. But in this study, they said a sleep mask and white noise were like the two biggest bang for the bucks that people could use. And in all reality, you're talking like 40 or 50 bucks worth of stuff that would last. I've had my sleep mask now for probably 6 or 7 years. You throw it in the wash every couple of weeks. So sleep is clutch. Now, one thing that I see in a lot of people is, Dr. Greg, I wake up at X time. And it's common because a lot of what I talk about with my clients is something called drainage. And we don't have time to go into drainage today, but drainage is how your body gets rid of things. And 2 a.m. to 4 a.m., if you're a listener and 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. seems to be a time that you're awake, what I have found is that directly correlates with the liver and the liver being able to move products. I believe it's a little bit more awake during that time. In many cases, when we upregulate liver function, these people are like, oh my gosh, I sleep like a baby now. But sleep is clutch. If you're not sleeping, you're not resting. Yeah. So that's the TEAMS protocol. So we talk about that on each of our visits so that we know that we're touching the bases of the whole picture, right? What it takes to get
Excellent.
well.
That's a really good structure. I love it. So, there's so much to talk about. I'm going to have you back on. This just be great. Will be really, I look forward to doing that. Anyway, so if someone wants to get a hold of you, how can they get in touch with you?
That's a great question. So just go to our website. So it's drgreg.health. So drgreg.health. And if you're curious about if you would, be a patient that I would accept. I do and have done for many, many years. I do a free discovery call. And I do that for a couple of reasons. Number one, I wish I could fix everybody, but I can't. So that call gives me an opportunity to understand you, your story, your support system, and your willingness to get well. It also gives you an opportunity to ask me some questions about me. I wish I could fix everybody. And that's why I do it for free, just so that there's no obligation, that people can say, hey, I had this conversation. And if there's a connection, there's a connection. And if there's not, no harm, no foul. So go check us out at drgreg.health.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you being here. Pleasure meeting you.
Right on. This was so good. Thanks, David.
Please don't forget, this episode was brought to you by SaunaSpace, makers of high-quality, third-party tested, zero EMF home saunas. Go to my website, davidsandstrom.com/resources, and click on the SaunaSpace logo and start enjoying all the extraordinary health benefits of owning your own near-infrared home sauna today. When you make a purchase by using the links on my resources page, you're supporting the show financially because you won't pay any more, and I make a small commission from that affiliate partner. For more, go to davidsandstrom.com. In the show notes for each episode, you'll find links to all the resources that were mentioned, as well as a full transcript with timestamps that you can download for free. In addition, I always include a content upgrade with each show, which is a free download that is designed to help you go deeper with that subject. Once again, thank you for listening, and I'll talk with you next week. Be blessed.